Thanks everyone, huge turnout. So hopefully I can interest you in what I'm talking about today. It works. It's not up on the screen. There we go. All right. Yeah, so as I was introduced, thanks for that. Superintendent of mine projects at BHP's Carrapateena mine, but I once upon a time was the superintendent of the site operations centre, so these are some learnings from during that time. I'll do a bit of an introduction to Carrapateena. So Carrapateena is about 1,600 kilometres west of where we are today, and it's an IOCG deposit, so iron oxide copper gold. We're a copper mine and we've got a byproduct of gold, which is quite handy to have at the moment. We're in the Gawler-Cratton region of South Australia, so that's that big purple area up there. And the asset's situated on Pernati Pastoral Station and Cookatha Traditional Lands. So the deposit was discovered in 2005. It was purchased by Oz Minerals in 2011, and the first development cuts were fired in 2016. And first saleable concentrate in 2019. So a pretty young mine in the scale or the scheme of Australian mining. BHP completed its acquisition of Oz Minerals and thus Carrapateena in 2023. So Carrapateena is now a key asset within BHP's Copper South Australia region. A bit of an introduction to today. So I was able to present a paper I wrote about the site operations centre at the Underground Operators Conference earlier this year. There was actually a bit of interest in the content, which surprised me a little bit. And the paper was basically an overview of the site operations centre, and there's lots of more detail you could go into in depth. But today I'll go into a little bit more on the detail of the design and development of the SOC, which is what we call it, and based on what we've learned at Carrapateena. Mainly around physical design features, the development of those features over time, the development of the SOC's capabilities, and then not only the physical design but the organisational design that received a bit of attention as well, so I can touch on that today. So that's the OG SOC. So I guess the point here is that we've now got a very fancy site operations centre at Carrapateena, but this is what it used to look like. So not much design involved in those shipping containers, but nonetheless, the point is to get started on what a site operations centre journey looks like. You don't need a fancy facility. You can just get a couple of dongers or shipping containers and get some computers in there and start collecting data to start adding value to your operations. So the location of the facility. So I think orange square there is where the SOC is. So this is an area of Carrapateena called NPI, and it took me about 2 years to work out what that stood for, but it's just very boring, non-processing infrastructure. And so the main offices are what you see up the top there. You got Change House on the left, and the SOC's housed in the area on the right. So the design of the SOC, the original intent, was it was pretty good. So on the left there, you've got the mining muster rooms, so easily accessible to where, and they still are the mining muster rooms today. But the original design had meeting rooms designed through the middle here, which was a bit odd. I guess it lacked a little bit of foresight, as it didn't really have anywhere for shift boss offices and things like that. So while the SOC's still in its location there on the right, that middle zone became quickly used up as different things. So now it looks a bit more like that, where the muster rooms are still there, but we've gone, and that was the original meeting rooms, and we've added in walls and extra doors and whatnot, so we can get tele-remote capabilities and all sorts. So we're trying to jam into this bit of space, so probably lacked a little bit of foresight from the design point there. As a result, the original design had a pretty free flowing, so a very ugly picture, but basically showing all the paths that you could get to and from the SOC. So that's a really key part about the design of a site operations centre, is how accessible it is for everybody, and particularly for the mining team, so the teams that support the SOC, or the SOC supports. So it used to have this sort of accessibility to the muster rooms and back. Now it's a bit more like that. So we've got this long hallway, and if you didn't know the SOC was there, you don't need to go down that hallway. You probably wouldn't know there was one on site. In terms of the original or the layout, so the SOC's in the middle. It's got the data centre on the northern side there. IMT room to the right, which is where you would manage an emergency, so it makes sense that you would design that next to your site operations centre as the go-to hub for information. There's a kitchenette right outside, which is excellent, so that the site operations centre team can go to the kitchenette and have lunch and store their crib there and whatnot. It's now got the mining offices down the bottom there, which is a good idea to have access to the supervisors, and they can come and get information quickly if they need to. And a critical access piece is the PCS office down in the bottom right-hand corner there. So process control systems, obviously the SOC controls many things, including the processing plant at Carrapateena. So having that quick access to the support team and the engineers in that office is very handy when things don't go as planned. So the SOC's on its third iteration of the layout since its inception. This was the original design. I don't know if the original design ever got used, but basically it had try to do the NASA style layout where you've got the desks facing the front to this big NASA wall of information. That's how it was intended in the drawings. What it ended up being like was a photo on the left and the layout on the right, so a bit of a horseshoe design. And the TV wall, ultimately, it looked good, so that was the only part that lasted. It looked good, a bit of a NASA-style wall, but it really didn't serve any purpose. A lot of the information up there was useless, and the technicians themselves would not look at it because they're looking at their desks. So, good idea, but in practice, probably not as practical. What it looks a bit more like now is, this is what it looks like now, is the same sort of idea. So the desks are laid out in a way that follow the value chain. So all the way from development through to haulage to our loaders and crusher control, loaders and ore pass control, material handling system and crusher control, and then across to processing. So they sort of all sit in the way that the material flows. And that's because you do need to work closely with the people on your left and your right. We've added a bit more space for support roles. So we've got an emergency call receiver desk down the bottom, and we've got supervisor desks and support role desks around the other spaces. So it's probably maxed out in its capability now in terms of how you could fit into that layout. Now, one part that's really important about the design of a SOC is the lighting. So if you were to build a SOC again from scratch, you would certainly have a fully controllable light system in there. Primarily, as you can see on the top left, it's hard to make out, but there's some lights on and there's some lights above desks that are turned off. They've just had to be physically unplugged in the ceiling because we don't have a smart lighting control system. And as a result, I took a photo in the office the other day, not in the SOC, but someone had made a bit of a makeshift hood there to cover the light glare off their screen. So pretty important that you think about things like that to support the design of a site operations centre. So this is the layout as we had again. Now the reason why we went to this layout is I guess the SOC has changed because the mine has changed. And so it's probably a key consideration in design that you need to either have foresight to what the site's going to be like in the future or in the mine plan. And if you don't really know what it's going to look like, at least try and design it with flexibility, try and allow space to expand into if you need to. You don't really want to wall yourself in a way that we kind of are in the SOC. It's still a pretty good facility in terms of its size, so there's a lot of flexibility there. Some of the key benefits are that data centre to the top side there, so very short runs for cables and everything to get to the primary data centre. And the IMT is a critical piece on the right-hand side there. If I was to be redesigning this now, I'd potentially have additional access to the IMT from the SOC for direct access, because you sort of have to go through 2 lockable doors to get there in emergency to transfer information. But ultimately, like I was saying, the SOC has changed over time because the mine's changed. Now, as the mine's changed, what drove to us to get to this position at the time was Crusher 2. So we're implementing a new crusher underground, and we're basically tripling the size of our material handling system, as well as adding in a complex ore pass and crusher level management system. So we needed more people basically to run the mine. Now, this was our original structure, which I've referred to before as lean. But a lot of people probably wouldn't look at this, particularly a lot of other sites I know of, and think that that's lean. They would be thrilled to have that sort of resourcing, but I guess it's just all relative to the mine you're operating. And the key part around organisational design for a SOC is that the people on the desks, the technicians that are operating those desks and serving those functions, you can't run the mine without them. So the simple math in terms of justifying your headcount is that you must have a certain number of minimum shifts to staff. So if there's no technician running the processing on the processing plant desk, the processing plant can't run. There's no one on the loader desk. We can't dispatch loaders, and we can't manage the ore passes. If there's no one on the material handling desk, we can't run the crusher. So they have to be there. So we do have a minimum number of shifts, whereas with an engineering or a technical team, if someone's not there one day, their work will still be there tomorrow and they'll pick it up when they get in. You can't do that in a SOC. So minimum number of shifts to staff. You then need to consider training requirements, because to maintain that flexibility so people can do different roles, you need to train them up. So you need to allow time for training. You then, obviously, people have entitlements to annual leave and allowances for personal leave. You then need to think about enough headcount to cover breaks, because they're entitled to a break and they can't work 12 hours a day, so they need to consider that. And then you just top it up with the resourcing, which made it quite easy from a headcount justification point of view when I put it like that. So the SOC grew like this. So additional desk in there. It grew by about 30% increase in operational roles and about 50% increase in support roles. In the end, it was about 50-50, so we actually added a few additional haulage roles there. That was pretty much in line with the increased crusher throughput, so it made sense logically. Other important considerations for a SOC if you were designing that, so ergonomics, sit-stand desks, obviously, that's pretty popular across the offices anyway. But we also did individual ergonomic assessments for each operator, and then you offer a range of recommended chairs. Carpeted floors for sound deadening, sound absorbing panels on walls and ceiling, it would be very valuable. And obviously a radio technology system, so we use TurboNet, but so you could run it digitally through headsets, because SOCs get very busy, lots of radio calls, so that minimises the noise. In terms of hygiene, if you could build in some dedicated air purifying filter to assist with dust and other contaminants in the room. Carpets are hard to clean, so what we found is when we do try and vacuum it often, we can sometimes set off the fire detection system with the Vesda in there, so that's painful. So it does collect lots of dust, so you do need to try and maintain and keep it clean. Use of shoe covers for entrance with dirty boots is a simple one. And the other one is a backup SOC. So we're pretty lucky at Carrapateena is we have a backup data centre called DC2. There's also a mini SOC there. So in the event when somebody gets sick, you're able to sort of isolate them and get them over there. The other part is, like we spoke about before, resourcing the SOC appropriately, that people don't feel obliged to come to work if they're ill, and there's enough people to cover the team. Because sitting in a site operations centre with other people, 12 hours a shift right next to them, you don't want people sick. They make that spreads pretty quickly, and then it can take out the whole team, which is not good. So I guess in conclusion, from humble beginnings to a high-functioning site operations centre, Carra's learnt a lot along the way on what to do and what not to do. It's a pretty impressive site operations centre. It's not perfect, but it is a very high-functioning team. You need to consider the layout of the buildings and the proximity to amenities and other work groups, and how how accessible the SOC is. It's probably the key design consideration. Where is the SOC and how accessible is it for support teams and the teams that SOC support? Consider the people that spend 12 hours a day in there, so lighting, ergonomics, fresh air, all that kind of thing. Understand the role of the SOC. So it needs to be accessible. It's a service provider. You need to have access to that facility. And I guess ultimately in the end, I'd like to thank a few people who really did the good work on this site operations centre. So I was just a bit of a blow-in that came in at a period of time and was able to put in a window on the side to get some daylight in there, and then I've claimed a fair bit of the credit for it since presenting at Ausium and here. But there's a couple of people that were really instrumental in the way it turned out in the end. So that was Troy Webley, Amelia Schmidt, Eric Law, still very valuable people to that SOC today, and even some that have left the business or left the roles. Jonathan Rossiter and Matt Poyser are also very key contributors to the SOC today. So I wanted to shout out to them and thank them, as well as thanking BHP for allowing me to present today, and IMARC for the Mining Operators Series, which is really good to get some real stories from site operations out in the mining industry and bring them to IMARC to the people that want to listen. So thanks for your time. Cheers.